Comics are the most important art form. They're the oldest art form.
Comics shouldn't be forgotten about like they have no artistic merit.
I think it's just a good combination of what someone else is sharing with you what vision they have.
Reading a comic allows for the reader's imagination to go wild.
They're older than spoken language.
Comic has enough artistic merit to go toe-to-toe with a novel, with a movie.
You know, these great comic book storylines have existed forever.
You know, the cave paintings, the hieroglyphs. You know, those are comics. That's sequential art. It's storytelling.
If you like stories and you like art, it's the best of both worlds.
It's just seeing that, oh, I made something and it's there and it's physical.
It's a very small group of people who really do this, and it requires such focus. It takes that time. You can't get around it. People always want to know, well, hey man, what's the shortcut? Or, you know, how can I get from here to... Dude, you got to put in the time.
Right.
Ten, 15, 20 years ago, the stigma was a negative stigma around comics, geek, nerd culture, whatever you want to call it, pop cultures in certain ways.
The movies, the television shows, everybody, you know, knows Superman or Spider-Man.
You have some multi-million, almost billion-dollar movies now that it's become mainstream. There's no reason why we shouldn't treat this, you know, comic books and that culture around it as a high-end retail spot.
Yep.
And, you know, the pillars that we had were that we wanted to make the store clean, bright, shoppable, and offer excellent customer service.
We tend to get a lot of people that have never been into comic book stores. People that were intimidated to go to the other stores or intimidated to branch out and try something like this. There's so many good stories that are being done in comic book form.
West of Light. Story of a bounty hunter who has two possessed pistols, two weapons that he's acquired, and he's on a mission to rescue a dear friend of his in a dark world fighting demons. It's been a project the three of us have been working on for a long time. Myself as the penciler, Stephen Bowman as the inker, and Bruce Thomas as our writer.
I wanted to collaborate. I usually pencil and ink, and I really wanted to try, you know, collaborating with somebody and adding something to their art and kind of blending the two.
I wrote the story, but we all kind of had ideas that we put in together to make the story.
It's a one-shot comic, so a one-shot means it's a kind of a self-enclosed story in one issue.
It's been a lot of hard work, but it's been really fun, and we're kind of getting into the final stages of it now, where we're just about ready to put it out there.
We're not planning on a second issue at this point. We'll kind of see how this one goes, but we think it's got some potential.
My name is Yoko Molotov, and I am an artist. I draw comic books. Western comics are very much a boys' club. Like as a girl, I couldn't relate to them really. When I did the comics before I discovered anime, I would draw like, it was more like cartooning, like it was more like the Hanna-Barbera stuff, you know, Tex Avery stuff. And Eastern comics have a very feminine perspective, and I don't know if that's what I really tuned into as a kid and really knew what that was, but I'm thinking that's probably what it was. I was able to relate to that. There is an inherent weirdness to like Eastern style art in general that I just am fascinated by, and it's really obsessive. Like I really, really love it. When I was a little kid, I would draw these really weird comics on like Xerox paper, and I would start from the bottom to the top. And the stories involved this little character, and he was an egg. His name was Eggy. It was really original. It was very groundbreaking work. And I don't know, I just never stopped. I've branched off into like other forms of art and stuff, and I just didn't stay there and become some weird like otaku person. I didn't do that, but there's still like some holiness in that weird like nerdy anime fandom for me.
My shot, boy.
So Cape and Cal. So Cape and Cal is the stereotypical superhero. It's the ones that wear capes and the ones that wear cows. No, it's the Batmans, the Supermans, the Spider-Mans, the superheroes that you have superpowers. They fly, they fight crime, all that. Anything else that's
I mean, we've had hundreds of comics on the wall, so and the thing is, you don't like this book here, you can try another book, or you can stick with it, and that comic could be around for the next 30 years, and you can grow with that character and go on the adventures for a long time with that character.
There are lots of different ways to tell stories. The thing I think comics can do that's sort of unique is that it's the only of the visual storytelling mediums that can really, all parts of the process can be done by one person. You can really get like an individual point of view in comics, whereas just by the nature of the amount of time it takes to do things like movies or animated films, you have to have large groups of people to get anything done, but comics you can really get one artist's viewpoint.
Like, lots of weird things inspire me, like in terms of what I like to draw or the stories in my content, just like weird. Basically a lot of my dreams. It's like if you were to watch a movie as opposed to reading a comic book. Like, the movie has everyone cast, the actors are in charge of how they sound and what they do, but when you're reading a comic, you can come up with the voices of the characters and maybe what the backstory is that isn't entailed there. So basically, I think reading a comic allows for the reader's imagination to go wild if they wanted to, but the story is still there also.
We're pretty much a group of cartoonists and writers, all from Louisville and southern Indiana, and we just get together and encourage each other to create comic books and publish self-published anthologies, collections of short comic book stories, and we try to get together on a weekly basis and just draw comics and kind of keep involved in the creation of local comics.
I think we're lucky to be in a town that sort of respects local art.
This year I just started to vend my stuff locally. It's mostly through Destination Comics off of Shelbyville Road and The Great Escape off Bardstown Road.
And there's a lot of other shops like Fat Rabbit and Astro Black, which is a record shop / consignment shop boutique on Oak Street Lounge that are extremely accommodating, and they will sell your comic or your book or your mixtape or whatever you've made at their store on consignment. No questions asked, no screening, nothing.
So every month we have a new independent artist that we feature here at the Destination, and it's always someone that sometimes it's friends of mine, sometimes it's people I've just met at cons, and they do all sorts of independent art, either pop culture, comic book related, and we feature them here for a whole month, and then we usually get them in to come in for a signing. The great thing about Artist of the Month is that you can find those posters anywhere, but a lot of people can't make it to the conventions, the comic book conventions, and they don't have a chance to see these great artists. So they come to the store and they can see these great artists and get it for their home. Some people are intimidated by comic book conventions. They stay away from them because, You know, if you see the media and the news, whenever they film one, love to show the intimidating side of it. Everybody in costume, the massive crowds, the massive lines, and it's not that intimidating, but a lot of people steer away from it, and they just come to their local comic book shops.
I have an older cousin who was really like a big brother to me, and he was always into cool stuff. He would come over and he'd bring a stack of dog-eared Marvel comics, and we would sit for hours and just copy the covers. And I mean everything down to the text and all of it. And since he was older than me, he was actually a very good artist. He was much more proficient. And so I wanted to be that good. I wanted to be able to look at something and recreate it, or just come up with something in my head and put it on paper. I would study, and then I started collecting my own books. I had artists that I was drawn to, whose work really spoke to me. I didn't know why, but guys like John Buscema and of course Jack Kirby and those guys. But I think the first character that I really identified with was the Black Panther, and for a number of reasons. Primarily because the character was black, and other than the fact that he was an African king. That was just an aside. I mean, he did what he did and was motivated by the same thing that motivated Captain America or Daredevil or whomever. It was this sense of purpose and justice and righteousness. And but he looked like me, and he looked like the people in my family. And so Black Panther, for me, was the first time I ever was able to look at social issues through comics. I always identified, I think, with characters that were either conflicted or certain that they had a purpose, but not necessarily certain what the purpose was. As a kid, I just didn't even equate comics with money or with the career. I don't know, it was weird. I just didn't see, I knew there were guys who wrote the book and would draw the book, and obviously the book cost money. But I just didn't see that as something that you would do as a career. It just seemed so fun. And everyone that I knew who had a job didn't like their job. And I'm thinking, so this can't be a job, because it's a blast to do. A book called Fury Brothers that we will finish someday. It wasn't until, I guess, maybe high school that I started to put together this connection between art and career. And unfortunately, though, in high school, for me, I was never able to draw the kind of stuff I wanted to draw. I was always, whatever fit into the curriculum. So I really struggled with that. In fact, I failed art in high school. But I had friends who kind of got where I was coming from, and they were reading the same stuff I was reading, and so they would ask me to draw characters for them. And I was probably my senior year, I guess, I got an actual paid commission.
Art is so subjective. It's just my perception of the human condition, which is just as unique as everyone else's. Individuals are going to find it special. Some individuals aren't. If someone gets what I'm doing, then it's for them. If they don't, someone else will. I don't really think of stuff like that. Maybe I should.
You definitely have to work it out. If you don't do it for a while, there's rust that needs to be shaked off. And it's not always the same. It seems like, some days it comes really easy, and then some days you have to work for it.
It's getting hung up on what I think I'm bad at. And I will look at other people's art and want to try and mimic their style or learn a technique, and I'll get obsessed with it until I finally nail it.
I see such crazy, amazing things in my head, and it's hard to accurately put it on paper.
Finishing that piece, man, you know, I say finishing, it's never really finished, because you could always come back to a piece. I always see something in my work that, man, I really missed that, or I could have nailed that better, you know.
I feel like I haven't drawn a lot of comic book pages yet, you know. I feel like I've just kind of scratched the surface on doing sequential storytelling, and just have a ton to learn, but it's really fun each time.
The hardest thing about drawing comics is finding the time to draw comics. Like, when I first got published in doing books, it was all I was doing. And I would churn out about 5 pages a week, typically. The deadlines back then were 128 pages over 4 months for these graphic novels I was doing. So I did the math, and it was something like, if I could get 5 pages out a week, got it.
You're constructing something from nothing, and so, you know, the scariest part of any project is looking at the blank page.
I did a convention not long ago, and there was a young man there who was 11 years old. His father brought him over to the table, and they were looking through some of my work, and he got the courage to show me his sketchbook, because he's an artist, and it was really good. And so we talked on that level, right, just from artist to artist. And so I did a commission for him in his sketchbook. But while he was waiting for that commission, he took his sketchbook and paper out of it and did a portrait of me. That's the kind of thing that really, I think, motivates me more than anything else. I mean, I want to get better. I see other artists, so many incredibly talented artists who do things that just amaze me. And that's motivation, certainly. My youngest son, Justice, who's an incredible illustrator, when he was very young, he would sit on my lap and he would watch me draw, and then I'd give him paper and crayon or something, and he would copy whatever I was working on. And you could tell right away he was very, very good. But we encouraged that, and so he knew there was never really any time in his life when he did not know that he wanted to be a graphic illustrator, a graphic artist. Watching him develop, and as he got older, and we could, we go to the comic book store and we could talk about artists and technique, and even more so now. That's the big thing for me. That connection to, I think, my youth, and watching someone's face light up when they see a piece that either they commissioned or a character that they know, but done in a different way. That's just, it doesn't get any better than that.
Mediocre art can carry a really good story. You have to have a great story. Oh goodness, I can't pick.
It could be a comic book that has an amazing story, but if it has bad art, I can't get into it.
It takes an artist or an illustrator to be able to create these basically still images and put them in sequence to complete this story. But it isn't just, the notion that this guy is flying or leaping from one building to another. You could draw that in a very simple way, but to put it at an angle so that you can tell that the villain is 100 feet tall.
For me, it's always the art that drives me. It's the covers that get me into it, and then it's the art that holds me in it. When people are reading a comic book, they're not just reading the words, they're literally put in that world.
If you can't write the story, get somebody to write for you. If you can't draw, have somebody draw for you. But it needs to both be good.
Of Will Eisner, he is like one of the people who basically helped create comics as they are now. And this one, Contractor at God, is it's like the first book referred to as a graphic novel. He actually came up with the term when he was trying to market it. He had worked on this comic, The Spirit, for like years. And it's this like genius weekly superhero comic.
Some part of it is still a product. So that's why companies, now that they know they can make money on it, it just opens up the floodgates for any other property.
But the movies are subsidizing the creativity here, and that's the good thing. The movies are doing well. The TV shows are doing well, which are letting Marvel, DC, Image, and all them have more money to try new things.
Drawing or art, is very subjective. But in terms of technique, it's like it's like basketball, right? So you don't give a kid a ball and expect him to be, LeBron James right away. There's practice. Even LeBron, with his physical gifts, has to practice to be that proficient. And art is the same way. So you have to love it first. If you love it, you'll practice hard enough, and you can't help but get better.
I just want to draw as many comic books as possible. I want to draw as many drawings as possible. I want to create as much as possible. I want people to look at them. And that's really the extent of it, because monetary gain, albeit nice, is not my goal.
Still going to be selling some of my digital illustrations through Destination Comics and The Great Escape. I'm supposed to actually have a show here at Highland Coffee in March, so months from now, but I'm getting stuff together to hang up on the wall. And I'm going to have a table at the Cincinnati Comic Con next year, which should be next September.
I work with a lot of short stories now, like 4 to 8 pages, and I'd like to grow that, into doing some, longer form work and try to work my way up to a full graphic novel.
For me, it's just being able to take a story and actually illustrate and tell that story with pictures that I've created.
You don't see the erasures, you don't see the torn paper and the frustration. But eventually you work through all those things that you thought you were supposed to do, and you get to that moment of, there it is.